This is Lawn Mower Racing, the sport where riders turn ordinary lawnmowers into purpose-built racing machines. Kinda like if you mix karting with motocross. And where motorsport normally operates completely surrounded with cash, Lawn Mower Racing is designed to be accessible for anyone who wants to race one of these things and can lend their hand to a spanner or occasionally a welder. The whole idea is that it's cheap. You swap Silverstone Circuit for a regular farmer's field, an expensive race car for a lawnmower that you've built yourself, and you go racing. It's as simple as that. And the great thing is, when you ditch all of the complexity that comes with professional motorsport, you get to keep all of the adrenaline, the competition, and the community that comes with it. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, I've been racing in the BLMRA, the British Racing Club, for 3 years now. But I've also raced in a competitive circuit series, the Caterham Academy. And so I have a unique perspective on the two. So in this video, let me talk you through the sport, what these machines are like to ride, and how much the whole thing costs, because that is what it comes down to. Now, our club and lawnmower racing in general started just over 50 years ago in the UK, and it was born out of a frustration for how expensive motorsport is getting, rallying in particular in this case.
Sport was started back in 1973 in a pub, as one would probably assume. The cricketers in Wisborough Green. Everyone's got a lawnmower in the garden. Let's race them, when they did.
And this was because a season of racing was going from tens to hundreds of thousands of pounds, and it was excluding most people who wanted to get involved. So the founders needed to create a cheaper form of motorsport, and they landed on lawnmowers. Now, the story goes that they started with a Group 1. This was a mower that you ran along behind, but soon realised that the limitation is often you and not the lawnmower. Not great for racing. Now, the next step up is what we call a Group 2 mower. These are roller-driven lawnmowers that normally would be used for cutting cricket greens or something like that. Riders will take one of these, lean the lawnmower back and attach a trailer behind it, among a whole host of other modifications, and race them like that. They are essentially front-wheel drive, longer, and they have some absolutely great racing. These things can reach speeds of up to 40, 45, 50 miles an hour on some of the longer straights on bigger circuits. The rider sits in the trailer and uses the handlebars to steer, a bit like a motorbike, but where it's different is they also use their feet to turn the front. The front unit's very heavy, so you need that extra leverage just to steer these things around a circuit. Next is Group 3, or my favourite, or just the one I landed on first. And these are based on a Westwood Lawn Bug, a 70s small sit-on lawnmower. Now, these are smaller and much more compact, but they also have a load of poke. They run 13 horsepower engines in our club, which is over double what you'd find in a standard rental car, so they are pretty quick. Now, what's different about these is because your weight is quite high up, you have to use a very unique riding style. You need to use your body weight to manipulate the weight of the mower to get it turned into corners and to make sure it doesn't tip up on two wheels. It's actually very common to ride these through the middle of the corner on two wheels. Now, this is the top class, a Group 4. These are regular garden tractors. They use the same 13 horsepower engine that's in the Group 3, but where they're different is that they have a much wider track width and a longer wheelbase, as well as bigger tyres, enabling them to carry more speed through the mid-corner, so they're a few seconds quicker per lap. Now, I must mention, these are the standard classes for our club, the BLMRA, but there are hundreds of clubs all over the world that use variations of these rules, and some that are entirely different. Now, I race with another club that use engines of up to 20 horsepower, which is pretty mental, but over in the US, where they run more oval circuits, it can be heard of that you have engines running up to 100 horsepower, extensively modified, originally lawnmower units, but they are another level. So what's the deal here? Why do you go lawnmower racing? I can hear you asking. Well, there are a number of factors, so let me explain. The main thing is that it's all the fun of competitive racing, but without the costs. Normal circuit racing with tyres, insurance, expensive cars, track hire, all of that, the costs rack up ridiculously high. Whereas with a lawnmower, the machinery costs are very low, and then also the track costs are very low, and there are specific rules meaning that you can't run sponsorship. So all of the operating costs stay as low as physically possible.
It's the last outpost of non-checkbook racing. Here you can make your own mower and be on the grid, and if you're any good, you can be competitive for 3,000 quid.
Then there is the fact that these things are really simple and easy to work on. I love working on stuff, and a lawnmower is a great way to do that. The engineering and fettling side of it is almost as fun as the racing itself. Next is the specifics of the racing. Now, the factual racing on a field brings a unique challenge. You have to really factor in bumps, the grip levels that vary all over the circuit, and that feels like when you race in the wet, you're sort of searching around for the grip. You have to pick lines that aren't particularly the best geometric racing line. You have to adapt constantly. The circuit also changes, and these lawnmowers are very sort of square-sided and smaller, and you have incredible visibility, meaning that you can race literally shoulder to shoulder, rubbing up against each other, and no one gets into big trouble. And that is part of the fun of this. You can really have incredibly close racing. And that's basically what this channel is, me sharing my love of racing. I film this stuff and I can't wait to go and edit it and upload it and share it on YouTube, even if only 10 people watch it. So I'd love it if you hit subscribe on the channel. That would really help me out. Now, it doesn't stop there for normal race weekends. There are some big signature races. The big one is the 12-hour that runs in the BLMRA, an overnight 12-hour endurance race. I did it for the first time this year. There is a video up on the channel, and it was incredible fun. You take the normal racing stuff, which is great. You have loads more seat time, but then you also have the team element of it, where you go from racing people every week. You're now in a team of 3 working together to try and achieve a common goal, just to keep racing and get to the checkered flag. It adds a whole nother layer to it. Then there was also the 12-hour race that happened in Finland. They raced on a frozen lake and had to adapt their lawnmowers to work in the cold. Some teams even ran heated steering wheels and all sorts to get through the cold. It looks like an awesome event. Now, I've covered loads of details here, but the one you probably want to know is about the costs. And the first thing I will say is it depends. It depends how competitive you want to be and how much money you want to throw at it. I've tried to do it on a reasonable budget for these things. So a typical race weekend will cost between £50 and £70 with camping and race entry all included, as well as your transponder hire, things like that. That seems to stay pretty consistent among most clubs. Then there's fuel. I have never burnt more than 10 litres of petrol per weekend. Whatever that costs in your region is not a lot compared to my circuit racing experience, where you're doing 80 to 100 litres a weekend of fuel. Then tyre costs, which are normally a big factor, aren't really in lawnmower racing. A set of tyres will cost you £100 maximum, and they will do a whole season. Then there is getting hold of a lawnmower itself. Now, I've seen chassis going for 50 quid, 100 quid on Facebook Marketplace, or you can go and buy a completely race-prepared mower. Now, I have seen these go up to £2,500, but generally sit around £1,000 in the UK for a race-ready lawnmower. You literally buy it, often get spares with it, and you're good to go. But if you want to do it yourself, that's probably the cheapest way to go, and you can convert a chassis to a racing lawnmower over a winter of evenings in the shed. Now, I actually bought a new lawnmower this season. You might have seen my build video. That cost me around £400, and that was with a chassis that I could have run as it was, but I wanted to adapt it to get it up to speed. So really, it all depends how resourceful you are and how much of this you want to do yourself, which is part of the spirit of this whole thing. So I'd encourage you, go buy a chassis, check you can race it at your local club, and then go for it. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. If you have any questions, I'd love to help. Drop a subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.